In the quaint village of Eldenwood, the soft clinking of tools and the rich scent of leather filled the air of Leo's shoemaking shop. Leo, known for his craftsmanship, had built a reputation for creating the finest shoes, each pair imbued with a touch of magic, or so the townsfolk whispered. His skill was unmatched, but it was his cleverness that truly set him apart. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled ominously overhead, a cloaked figure entered the shop. The bell above the door jingled softly, cutting through the steady rhythm of raindrops. Leo looked up from his workbench, his brow furrowed with curiosity. The stranger's face was hidden beneath the hood, and the scent of damp earth lingered in the air around him. "Can I help you?" Leo asked, wiping his hands on his apron. The figure stepped forward, revealing a glint of gold in their hand, a heavy, ornate coin that gleamed even in the dim light of the shop. "I need a pair of shoes," the stranger said, their voice low and gravelly. But not just any shoes. Leo's heart raced. He had never encountered such a client before. "What do you mean?" "They must be perfect. They must grant me a way to escape my pursuers," the cloaked figure replied, their eyes flashing with urgency. "Pursuers?" Leo echoed, a chill creeping up his spine. "What do you mean? Who is after you?" The figure hesitated, their gaze darting toward the window as a flash of lightning illuminated the darkening sky. "Time is of the essence," they said. "If I tell you too much, it will only endanger us both. Just know that these shoes are for a journey that could change everything." Leo's instincts flared. He was intrigued, yet wary. "What kind of journey?" "I cannot say. Just know that they must be crafted with care, and they must be ready by tomorrow evening." The figure placed the coin on the counter. "You will be well compensated." With that, the stranger turned to leave, but Leo's curiosity got the better of him. "Wait. How will I know what kind of shoes you need?" The figure paused at the door, their silhouette stark against the dim light. "Just trust your skill, and remember, the right shoe can change the course of fate." With that, they disappeared into the stormy night. Leo stared at the coin, its weight feeling significant in his hand. He sensed a mix of excitement and dread. This was no ordinary request. As he began sketching designs, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn into something much larger than himself. The night wore on, and the rain drummed steadily against the windows of the shop, creating a rhythm that echoed in Leo's mind. As he worked on the shoes, the words of the mysterious client echoed like a haunting melody. "The right shoe can change the course of fate." Leo rummaged through his supplies, searching for the finest leather. He knew that these shoes had to be exceptional, something that would withstand the elements and provide the wearer with speed and stealth. But what kind of magic could he weave into them? The thought consumed him. He decided to use leather imbued with properties of agility. Leo's hands moved deftly, cutting, stitching, and shaping, but his thoughts were plagued by questions. Who was the cloaked figure? What were they running from? As he worked, he found himself glancing outside, half expecting to see shadows moving in the dark, half expecting to catch a glimpse of his mysterious client. The hours passed, and Leo's progress was steady, yet he could feel a sense of urgency creeping into his bones. The rain intensified, pounding against the roof with a ferocity that seemed to echo the growing tension in his heart. Just as he finished the first shoe, a loud bang jolted him from his concentration. He rushed to the window, peering into the night, but all he could see were sheets of rain. Had the pursuers arrived? His mind raced with possibilities. Was he now entangled in a web of danger simply because he had chosen to help a stranger? Deciding to stay vigilant, Leo returned to his work. The second shoe came together even more swiftly than the first, as if the urgency of the situation was guiding his hands. The design was simple yet elegant, with intricate stitching that formed a pattern resembling wings, suggesting speed and freedom. Just as he set the shoes on the counter to admire his work, the bell above the door chimed again, and Leo's heart leaped into his throat. This time, he was greeted not by the cloaked figure, but by a trio of men, their faces obscured by shadows and rain-soaked hoods. "Is the shoemaker here?" one of them demanded, their voice sharp as a knife. "I am," Leo replied, forcing his voice to remain steady despite the thumping of his heart. "What do you need?" "We're looking for someone," the leader said, stepping forward, the dim light revealing a glint of metal at his side. "A man in a cloak. Have you seen him?" Leo's mind raced. Should he betray the stranger's trust or protect them? He could feel the weight of the ornate coin in his pocket, a reminder of the life-altering choice he faced. "I haven't seen anyone," he said, attempting to sound convincing, though his voice quivered ever so slightly. The men exchanged glances, suspicion hanging thick in the air. "You're lying," the leader hissed. "We know he came here." "I don't know what you're talking about," Leo insisted, his heart pounding louder than the rain. The men were closing in, and he realized he needed to think quickly. "Let me show you something," he said, pointing toward the back of the shop. "If you search there, you'll see I'm just a simple shoemaker." The men hesitated, glancing at one another, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. In that fleeting moment, Leo seized the opportunity to grab the finished shoes and duck behind the workbench, clutching them tightly. He could hear the men advancing, their footsteps echoing ominously. As he crouched low, the weight of the shoes in his hands felt like the weight of fate itself. Whatever he had gotten himself into, there was no turning back now. He had to protect the secrets of the cloaked figure and the magic that lay within the shoes. But as the footsteps drew closer, Leo wondered if he could truly escape the grasp of the men hunting for their quarry. Leo's heart raced as the footsteps of the men grew nearer. He had to think quickly. The shop was filled with dark corners and shadows, and he hoped that his small stature and the cover of the workbench would keep him hidden. "Where is he?" the leader barked, his voice low and threatening. "We know he came in here. He can't have left without being seen." Leo held his breath, his mind racing. He could hear the men rifling through the shelves, their movements growing more agitated. They were searching for something that could put both him and the cloaked figure in peril. The first shoe lay on the table, glimmering under the dim light, while the second was nearly complete, hidden under a pile of scraps. Leo's thoughts darted to the coin, which represented not just payment but also a choice. Helping the stranger had led him to this moment, and he was not about to let fear dictate his actions. Suddenly, the leader called out, "Check under the workbench." Panic surged through Leo. They were closing in on him. He had to create a distraction, something to buy himself time. As he quietly set the shoes down, he reached for a nearby hammer, contemplating his next move. Just then, a crash sounded from the front of the shop, an object falling to the floor. "Did you hear that?" one of the men asked, his tone filled with uncertainty. "Stay focused." "Go check it out," the leader commanded, and two of the men sprinted toward the sound, leaving only the leader behind. This was his chance. Leo quickly scrambled from his hiding spot, grabbed the second shoe, and bolted toward the back exit of the shop. The rain lashed against him as he slipped out into the stormy night, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He ran through the narrow alley behind his shop, the sound of the storm mingling with the thudding of his heart. The village was shrouded in darkness, and he had no idea where to go. He needed to find the cloaked figure and warn them of the danger they were in. As he turned the corner, he skidded to a halt. There, at the edge of the alley, stood the cloaked figure, soaked from the rain, but with a look of relief washing over their features as they spotted Leo. "You came," the stranger exclaimed, pulling back their hood to reveal a face etched with worry and determination. "Did they find you?" "Not yet," Leo replied, breathless. "But they're looking for you. You need to leave." The figure glanced down at the shoes in Leo's hands, recognition flickering in their eyes. "Did you finish them?" Leo nodded, his heart racing as he handed over the shoes. "I did, but we don't have much time. They're coming, and they won't stop until they find you." The cloaked figure took the shoes, their fingers brushing against Leo's hand, sending a shiver down his spine. "These are perfect," they said, slipping them on over their damp feet. "But I need more than just shoes. I need to know you're with me in this. Whatever it is you're involved in, I'm not sure I want to be part of it," Leo admitted, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on his conscience. "But I can't let them catch you." "Then you must trust me," the figure urged, their voice firm yet desperate. You have already made a choice by helping me. There's no going back. My enemies are powerful, and they won't stop until they have what they want. But if I can escape, I can put an end to this. As Leo looked into the stranger's eyes, he felt an inexplicable pull. He didn't know who this person was or what kind of trouble he was being drawn into, but he sensed a deep-seated determination behind their words. "All right," he said finally, resolve hardening in his chest. "What do you need me to do?" The figure glanced around, their expression shifting to one of urgency. "We need to get to the old mill on the outskirts of the village. It's the only place where we can regroup and figure out our next move. Can't we go to the town square?" Leo suggested, glancing back toward his shop where the shadows loomed. "There will be people there. It might be safer." The strangers shook their head.
"No.
Too many eyes. If they find us, they'll bring the whole town into it. We have to be smart." Before Leo could respond, a loud voice echoed through the rain. "They went this way." It was one of the men from the shop, his tone filled with urgency. The realization hit Leo like a punch. They were already onto them.
Quick.
"We need to move," Leo urged, and they darted down the alley, the rain pounding against them as they ran. The old mill was a dilapidated structure, surrounded by thick brush and overgrown weeds. Leo had visited it as a child, and while it had once been a place of wonder, it now stood as a hollow shell of its former glory. They sprinted toward it, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. As they reached the entrance, Leo paused to catch his breath, his heart racing. "Do you think they saw us?" The cloaked figure shook their head, eyes darting back toward the direction they had come. "We'll have to be careful. They might have more people out looking for me." Inside the mill, the air was stale, and the floor creaked beneath their feet. The darkness was nearly suffocating, and Leo felt a shiver run down his spine as they stepped deeper into the shadows. "We need to barricade the door," the stranger said, scanning the room for anything that could help. Leo quickly spotted an old wooden crate and heaved it in front of the door just as footsteps sounded outside. "Do you think this will hold?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It will have to," the stranger replied, their eyes focused on the door. "I just need a moment to gather my thoughts." The tension in the air was palpable. Leo could hear the distant voices of the men searching outside, their words indistinct but filled with urgency. Time was running out. "What are they after?" Leo finally asked, breaking the silence that enveloped them. The cloaked figure turned, their expression softening slightly. "Power. They want something that I possess, something that could change the balance between good and evil." "What do you mean?" Leo pressed, sensing that the answer was crucial. "I am part of a long line of guardians," the figure explained, their voice steady despite the chaos outside. "We protect a secret that must never fall into the wrong hands. They believe I have the key to it." "A key?" Leo asked, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of key?" "The key to a powerful artifact," they replied, their eyes narrowing. "One that can control fate itself. If they obtain it, they could manipulate time and space, and there would be no stopping them." Leo felt a chill crawl up his spine. This was no ordinary shoemaking job. This was a battle between forces he couldn't begin to comprehend. "What can I do to help?" The stranger stepped closer, their voice low. "You must stay by my side. I can't do this alone, and if they catch me, it will all be over. We need to find a way to outsmart them." Just then, the sound of footsteps grew louder, and Leo's heart raced as he glanced back at the door. He could hear the men talking, their voices sharp and accusatory. "They went in here." "I can smell them," one of them shouted. "Break down the door," another commanded, urgency lacing his tone. "Get ready," the cloaked figure said, determination in their voice. "We'll have to fight our way out if it comes to it." "Fight? I'm a shoemaker, not a warrior," Leo exclaimed, his heart pounding. "What if they overpower us?" "Trust in the shoes," the figure said, gripping Leo's shoulders. "They'll give me the speed and agility I need to escape. And you need to keep your wits about you. We'll find a way." The door began to shake as the men pushed against it, the sound reverberating through the mill. Leo could feel the tension in the air, his pulse quickening as the realization of their predicament set in. They were outnumbered and outmatched, but he couldn't let fear take hold. "I won't abandon you," he said, steeling himself for what was to come. "Let's do this together." With one final push, the door gave way, crashing open as the men rushed inside. Leo and the cloaked figure sprang into action. The stranger dashed toward the nearest window, their movements graceful and swift as they prepared to escape. "Get ready," the cloaked figure shouted, and Leo followed their lead, his heart racing as he grabbed a nearby broken wooden beam. He had no idea how effective it would be against their pursuers, but he had to try. The first man lunged at them, but the cloaked figure was faster, darting to the side and using the shoes to propel themselves forward. Leo swung the beam, connecting with the second man, sending him sprawling to the ground. "Now," the cloaked figure called out, their voice filled with urgency. They had created a small opening, a chance to escape. Leo could see the path ahead, a glimmer of freedom in the chaos. They sprinted toward the window, but the men were regrouping, fury etch. "Don't let them escape," the leader shouted, and Leo could feel the panic rising. As they reached the window, Leo glanced back, his heart pounding with the weight of their choices. The cloaked figure was already halfway through, their determination unyielding. "Go. I'll hold them off," Leo shouted, adrenaline fueling his voice. "No. You must come with me," the figure insisted, their eyes wide with fear. But there was no time for debate. Leo could feel the men closing in behind them. "I can't let you face them alone," he called out, grabbing the cloaked figure's arm, but they were already halfway out. "Trust me," the stranger urged, and in that moment, Leo knew he had to make a choice. He could escape and abandon the cloaked figure or take a stand and risk everything. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "I'll be right behind you," he shouted, and as the figure slipped through the window, Leo turned to face their pursuers. The first man lunged at him, and Leo swung the beam with all his might, catching the man off guard. But there were too many of them, and as he fended them off, he could feel the weight of their anger pressing down on him. "Run," he yelled to the cloaked figure, who was already sprinting away. "I'll catch up." With each moment, Leo fought against the encroaching darkness, the echoes of his own heartbeat drowned out by the chaos around him. He knew he had to be clever, like the shoemaker he was, to outsmart those who sought to claim the power hidden within the shoes. The storm raged on as Leo continued to fend off his attackers, his mind racing with possibilities. The cloaked figure had vanished into the night, leaving him to face the men alone. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, knowing he had to hold them back long enough for the stranger to get away. As he swung the beam, connecting with another man's shoulder, Leo could see the others regrouping, their eyes narrowing with determination. They were not just men. They were hunters, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim what was theirs. "Get him," the leader shouted, his voice laced with fury. "Don't let him escape." Leo knew he couldn't hold them off forever. The men surged toward him, and he ducked just in time as one of them lunged, the force sending the man stumbling past him. Leo seized the moment, darting toward the window, hoping to follow the cloaked figure. But as he reached it, he saw that the figure was already disappearing into the shadows of the forest beyond. "Don't let him get away," the leader yelled, and Leo's heart raced as he realized he was now the only thing standing between the men and their target. "Get back," Leo shouted, swinging the beam once more, this time aiming for the leader. The man ducked, but Leo felt the impact resonate through his arms. The struggle was frantic, and he could sense that he was outmatched. Adrenaline coursed through him as he quickly glanced back toward the window, knowing he had to make a decision. With a fierce resolve, Leo ducked beneath the outstretched arms of another man and made a break for the door, throwing it open just as the rain began to ease. He burst outside into the storm, his breath coming in sharp gasps. The night was filled with the distant sounds of thunder and the rustle of leaves, but there was no time to dwell on the chaos he had left behind. Leo sprinted down the narrow path that led toward the forest, the damp earth squelching beneath his feet. He could hear shouts behind him, the men hot on his heels, but the thought of the cloaked figure, now a mere shadow in the distance, propelled him forward. "Stop him," one of the men cried, their footsteps echoing against the ground. "He's heading for the woods." As Leo ran, the woods loomed ahead, dark and foreboding. He knew he had to reach the cloaked figure before the men caught up with him. A sense of urgency filled him. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. He plunged into the underbrush, branches whipping against his face as he maneuvered through the trees, trying to follow the path he had seen the figure take. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth, but it was the adrenaline that fueled his every move. After what felt like an eternity, Leo spotted a flash of movement, a dark figure slipping between the trees. "Hey!" he called out, desperation edging his voice. "Wait for me." The cloaked figure turned, their face illuminated for just a moment by a flicker of lightning. Relief flooded through him as he pushed himself to run faster. "Over here," they urged, their voice barely audible above the storm. As he closed the distance, Leo felt the weight of the pursuing men behind him. He glanced over his shoulder, seeing shadows darting through the trees. They were gaining on him, and soon they would have him cornered.
"Quick!"
This way, the cloaked figure beckoned, disappearing deeper into the woods. Without hesitation, Leo followed, knowing that every moment counted. They raced through the thick underbrush, the sound of their pursuers fading slightly as they navigated the trees. The woods were a maze, but the cloaked figure seemed to know exactly where to go, darting left and right with remarkable agility. "Why are they after you?" Leo gasped as they ran.
"What do they want?"
"They believe I hold the key to an ancient power," the figure replied breathlessly, their tone urgent. "They want to control it, and with it, they could unleash chaos upon the world. We must reach the old stone circle before it's too late." "The stone circle?" Leo asked, trying to keep up. "I've heard of it but never seen it. Is it far?" "Not far, but we need to hurry. If they catch us before we reach the circle, it could mean disaster for everyone," the figure said, glancing back as if sensing the presence of their pursuers. As they ran, the underbrush grew thicker, but Leo pushed through, determination surging through him. The idea of protecting something so powerful filled him with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. He wasn't just a shoemaker anymore, he was part of something much greater. Up ahead, the cloaked figure called out, and Leo squinted through the darkness, catching a glimpse of a clearing illuminated by a faint, ethereal glow. "That's it." They burst into the clearing, and before them stood ancient stones, tall and imposing, arranged in a circular pattern. The air shimmered with energy, a palpable tension that Leo could feel in his bones. It was as if the stones were alive, waiting for their guardians. "Quickly, we need to activate the circle," the cloaked figure urged, their voice urgent as they moved toward the center. Leo followed, breathless and alert. He could hear the footsteps of the men behind them, but the power of the stones seemed to push his fear aside. "What do we do?" he asked, scanning the stones for any sign of how to activate them. The figure raised their arms, and the air around them crackled with energy. "We need to connect our will to the stones. Focus on the power of the earth, the storm, and everything that binds us together. Together, we can protect the secret." Leo nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over him despite the danger. He stepped closer, placing his hands on one of the stones, and closed his eyes. The energy surged through him, a vibrant pulse that resonated with the rhythm of the storm outside. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the edge of the clearing. The men had arrived, their faces twisted with rage. "There they are," the leader shouted. "Don't let them complete whatever they're trying to do." Leo's heart raced as he felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He opened his eyes to see the cloaked figure focusing on the stones, their face illuminated with determination. "We have to finish this now." As the men charged forward, Leo felt the energy from the stones surge into him. He raised his hands and felt the connection, an ancient force that linked him to the earth and the cloaked figure. Together, he shouted, channeling all his energy into the stones. The ground beneath them trembled, and a brilliant light erupted from the center of the circle, illuminating the night sky. The energy pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger as the men faltered in their advance, caught off guard by the surge of power. "No!" the leader screamed, raising his hands to shield his eyes from the blinding light. "You can't do this." But it was too late. The stones resonated with energy, creating a barrier that pushed back against the intruders. Leo felt the power coiling around them, a protective embrace that shielded them from harm. As the light reached its peak, the men were thrown back, tumbling to the ground, unable to withstand the force of the ancient magic. Leo felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with fear. They had succeeded in creating a barrier, but the confrontation was far from over. "We need to seal the circle," the cloaked figure called out, their voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus on the intention to protect." Leo concentrated harder, feeling the connection strengthen. The energy from the stones swirled around them, forming a luminous shield that glimmered with 1,000 colors. He could feel it pushing back against the encroaching darkness, the very essence of their will forging a bond between them and the ancient guardians of the stones. Suddenly, a blast of energy erupted from the center of the circle, shooting upward into the sky like a beacon. Leo watched as it illuminated the clouds, revealing the storm overhead in a dazzling display of light. He felt an overwhelming sense of unity, not just with the cloaked figure, but with the land, the rain, and everything that existed. The men, now reeling from the force, scrambled to their feet, but their expressions had shifted from anger to fear. The leader shouted, "Retreat! We can't fight this." "Don't let them escape," the cloaked figure urged, but Leo could see that the energy had already begun to push them away from the circle. As the last remnants of the men fled into the night, the pressure on the stones began to ease. Leo and the cloaked figure remained standing in the center, panting heavily, their hands still connected to the energy that pulsed around them. "We did it," Leo breathed, a mix of disbelief and triumph flooding through him. "Yes," the cloaked figure replied, their face radiant with relief. "But this isn't over. They will return, and we must be ready." The realization hung heavy in the air, but Leo felt a newfound sense of purpose. "What do we do next?" he asked, determination igniting within him. The cloaked figure smiled, the shadows of worry fading from their eyes. "Now we prepare. We need to gather allies, those who believe in protecting the balance. And we must uncover the truth behind the power they seek." Leo nodded, a fierce resolve settling in his chest. He had started as just a shoemaker, but now he was a part of something larger, a guardian of secrets, a protector of fate. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but he was ready to face it, side by side with the cloaked figure who had turned his ordinary life into an extraordinary adventure. Together, they would stand against the darkness and protect the ancient secrets that could change everything. The night may have been stormy, but within them burned a light that could not be extinguished. And as they stood in the glowing circle, Leo realized that fate had brought them together for a reason, and this was just the beginning. As the last echoes of the storm faded into the night, Leo felt a sense of clarity wash over him. The air was thick with the remnants of magic, and the stones pulsed gently beneath his fingertips. He turned to the cloaked figure, who was now looking out over the clearing with a mixture of relief and determination. "We can't stay here long," the figure said, pulling the hood down from their face. "We need to find allies, people who understand what's at stake." "Who do we look for?" Leo asked, curiosity piqued. "And where do we begin?" "There are others like me, guardians of the old ways. They can help us. There's a woman named Alara who lives near the edge of the forest. She's a powerful seer and knows more about the forces at play than anyone else I know." "Then we go to her," Leo said, the urgency of the situation energizing him. "But how do we find her? The forest is vast." The cloaked figure nodded, their eyes sparkling with resolve. "Follow me. I know the way, but we must move quickly. The men will regroup, and they'll come looking for us." Together, they stepped out of the stone circle, Leo glancing back at the glowing stones as they dimmed. It felt like a promise, a vow that they would return. They moved through the woods, the underbrush crunching softly beneath their feet, the rain-soaked earth clinging to their shoes. As they navigated deeper into the forest, Leo's mind raced with questions. What else do you know about Alara? Is she someone we can trust? She's wise and powerful, but she has her own ways, the cloaked figure replied, their voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. She might test us. She needs to know our intentions before she offers her help. What if she decides we're not worth her time? Leo wondered aloud, the thought sending a pang of anxiety through him. She won't. We're not just asking for help. We're offering a chance to fight back. She knows the stakes, the figure reassured him. And we're not alone in this. The Guardians have always supported one another. After a short while, they reached a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a small, cozy cottage. The walls were overgrown with vines, and a flickering light glowed from within, casting warm shadows against the trees. Here we are, the cloaked figure said, their tone shifting to one of reverence. This is Alara's home. Leo took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. They approached the door, and the figure raised their hand to knock. But before they could, the door swung open, revealing an elderly woman with silver hair cascading down her shoulders. Come in, come in. I've been expecting you, Alara said, her voice warm but commanding. The storm has brought change, and I can feel the weight of your journey. Leo stepped inside, the warmth of the cottage wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. The interior was filled with herbs hanging from the ceiling and books stacked haphazardly on shelves. A crackling fire illuminated the room, and Leo could feel the energy humming around them. Sit, both of you, Alara commanded, motioning to a pair of mismatched chairs. You have much to discuss, and little time to waste. As they settled into their seats, Leo noticed the keen look in Alara's eyes. She seemed to see through to the core of their beings. You have faced danger already, but it is just the beginning, isn't it? She asked, her gaze shifting between them. Yes, the cloaked figure replied, their voice steady. They seek a power that could unleash chaos. We need your guidance to stop them.